You cannot be under bondage and you create.
Over 80% of young people are in informal employment.
They want to survive.
One of the principles that we should appreciate in life is for someone to be free.
And today, we are discussing entrepreneurship.
I realized that free men create.
Start a business.
Or what are young people telling you?
They think they need to support the people who are dependent on them.
What kind of expectations did you have about business, and then later on they completely turned out to be wrong?
They don't tell you there are going to be hardships.
Many young people are aware of these realities before they start business.
They were not told of that, and these are things that you can only face when you are into entrepreneurship.
They never tell you be patient with a business.
So why do you think many businesses actually remain informal?
I feel I'm going to go to taxes. I feel like the government favors more of the big businesses. Your family is there, your medical bills there, your food there, the license there. Everything as a youth mainly depends on that small business.
So we want to hear 2 or 3 policy recommendations from you.
Business that are starting, let them grow before you extract. A period of 3 years is fair before you tax me.
As a nation, we should digitize like that. We should limit more of popularizing most of the things.
Across Africa today, young people are being told one thing: start a business. Not as a dream, but as survival. But the reality is here. Over 80% of young people in sub-Saharan Africa are in informal employment, meaning most businesses operate without stability, protection, or even room to grow. And many of these businesses do not actually survive beyond their first birthdays. So the real question is, it is not just about starting the business or being into employment, but it's about whether the environment allows you to survive and actually scale your business. Now, a young entrepreneur is actually failing, or we are actually being failed by a system. Welcome to Afro Liberty Talks, and my name is George Kanyihamba, and today we are discussing entrepreneurship as an idea, but not just as an idea, but as a lived reality shaped by systems, policies, and of course, individual effort. Joining me today is Gilbert Bwambale, an entrepreneur and founder of Harambee trucks with real experience in building within Uganda's business environment. And we also have Nabaasa Rachael, the national coordinator of Students for Liberty Uganda, which is working at the intersection of economic policy, youth, and of course, economic freedom. Well, we'll start straight away with Gilbert. What pushed you, in the past, I've known you as someone who has been pushing for libertarian ideas, even when you were still in Kumba University as a student, trying to organize the liberty camps. So, and currently you are into business. What pushed you? We want to learn from your experience, and our viewers would want to know what pushed you from liberty ideas now to, practically implement being in business.
Yes, first of all, allow me appreciate you, Justice. George, you are someone I have known for a long time, And for the matter, or for the fact, you've been pushing out some of these conversations to make sure that these conversations can reach out to the people who need this information. And I just want to congratulate you and the entire, Justice Media House for the good job you are doing. Thank you so much. My name is Gilbert Bwambale, as you have well introduced me. I am a father of 2 children, married to 1 wife.
That's nice.
And I am a believer. I am a follower of Jesus Christ. Now to start, allow me to share scripture, because it's the basis of where my innovation and creation starts. I want to share with us a scripture from the book of Genesis chapter 1. And from chapter 1, I'll go straight to verses 28. Genesis chapter 1, verses 28. It's in that chapter, God is giving an account of creation. And so we cannot talk about creation without understanding some of the background on where some of us believers get these insights to see that we can also innovate or create. So I'll go straight to verses 28. After all the creation, and he created all the things, he also came to create man. And after creating them, now in verses 28, he says, then God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, have dominion over the fish of the sea, over the birds of the air, and over every living thing that moves on the earth. So, George, this is actually the gist or the principle from which I derive my, innovation. And the question was how I got to join innovation.
And what actually made you join business from Liberty Ideas to, being a business?
Absolutely. I believe one of the principles that we should appreciate in life is for someone to be free. And when someone is free, you're able to do whatever you want. Like just God said to after creating man and woman. So after joining the Liberty, the Liberty principles and all the conferences that I joined, I realized that free men create. You cannot be under bondage and you create. So my creating all my insights of getting into the business world was after realizing the purpose inside of me. So when I realized that after getting this, after knowing that I'm a free man, I found that there was a lot of, world challenges that needed to be filled. Now, I will go straight to the business that I do because this is what I understand most. I am into logistics. I am a transporter. Right now, I'm running a contract with Power Dairy Farms Uganda Limited. These are the manufacturers of Lato milk products, and we are one of the official transporters. So when I came out and realized that the transport business in Uganda is still being done on an informal, kind of level, I realized that there was need for me to swiftly enter that open space where I needed to create and, start up a business that is going to be providing solution for Power Dairy Farms transport their goods from right away from the farm and then to the production factories and then the finished goods to the marketplace. So from that, I realized that I can make money from the pay. These guys will pay me. So shortly, that's what I can speak about my, coming to this business world.
Okay, thank you, Gilbert. Now moving on to Rachael, you've had the perspective of the experience of Gilbert when he's mentioning about how he was able to transition from Liberty Ideas. He was also a coordinator student for Liberty, and He was actually trying to host liberty camps, those liberty camps of Action for Liberty. So he was hosting them in Kumba University, but it took a drastic step for him to be able to move from only speaking about ideas, but now implementing them in the section of entrepreneurship. So from your experience working with young people at Student for Liberty, what do you think, or what are young people telling you why they are actually going into business? What reasons do they give?
Okay, thank you so much, George. Thank you for hosting me here. My name is Nabaasa Rachael. Yes, the National Coordinator, Uganda. So, with the little engagement, or and the little or much, but with the much engagement I've had with youth, most startup businesses, because I would say the biggest thing would be for survival. They want to survive. They want to get something to facilitate their day-to-day living. They want to earn something that maybe they can use to purchase a few things they need in their life, the things they need to support the people who are dependent on them. So yeah, that's why most startup, they take the step to start up the business. Of course, there are those who they have the passion. Yes, there are those also who start the businesses out of passion too. But then in the long run, things turn out the other way. Yes.
So Gilbert, is there any, or what kind of expectations did you have about business, and then later on they completely turned out to be wrong?
Wow. First of all, thank you so much for that question, and my Nabaasa is adding out some of opinions and expertise on the youth. I think for me, I am now 4 years, 5 years. I'll be making 5 years in business officially since we launched our startup, and there are a few things that I've learned. First of all, like she shared, that most of the youth today will want to join business because, yeah, like she said, want to make an ends meet. But to me, when you face that, then when you come into the business, you come and face the reality. Because when you face the reality, you're going to face policies. You're going to face competitors. You are introduced to the marketplace. I would actually even suggest that before one can enter the business world, they ought to have at least worked in an environment, not just having attained an education degree or master's, but at least, because when you leave university, you have nothing on hand, like you have no experience whatsoever to allow you to sail through. So when you have a shock, you can easily slide. For myself, when I joined logistics, first of all, I had a background, very different background. That was diplomacy. Yeah. So there was nothing to do with business. But when I started the first year, yeah, because I had at least worked for 2 years when I left campus, and that 2 years I had worked under tight supervision. And I realized that when you are running business, there are some other aspects like, managerial economics that you cannot just come out of university and you practically, sail through those principles. This is where you need to first go through at least a working environment where you're working under a manager or under a supervisor, and then you can understand some of the dynamics. For instance, when I joined logistics, I did not know how to do quotations. Yes, I had, gone on Google and then learned how to do some of these quotations, but I realized that there was some more practical knowledge on skill sets that I needed to know from either the people that had gone through. So last year in 2025, in January, I went for a further studies. I am now pursuing my master's degree in procurement and logistics, because I realized that on a mastery level, I am actually doing more of the mastery than, or as opposed to the technical knowledge that is offered at bachelor level. Yes. So I believe there is much more to do with practical skill than just the passion to do the business. One, this is where today in the developed world, or even in Uganda here, there are a lot of incubation hubs or incubation, kind of arrangements. I would speak of one, the Stanbic Incubator, which I am an alumni. I went through the incubation study program. These are programs fashioned for entrepreneurs that are just starting, and they give you hands-on on how to run a business. They can give you mentorship. They can give you on how to handle accounts, because this is some of the weaknesses, some of the areas that young entrepreneurs mess up with. Personally, our first 2-3 years, our books of accounts were a mess. Not until I went through those, entrepreneurship boot camps, and I learned that if you are starting a business, you need to have a team of people who are skilled and practically have gone through the finances. So this is why I'm saying, much as you want to do this business, but there's more to do as opposed to you passion or even the vigor to make some money, which is now the skill set.
Okay, so Rachel, getting back to you, Gilbert mentioned an important aspect that it's not about you being there that I want to start a business. You mentioned of survival. Most of the young people actually want to survive. But I also mentioned an important thing that you need also to be having the right skill set for you to be able to handle that business to a level where it is really successful. So, is there any expectation that you feel is there anything that when people tell us to start business, what do you think they are not telling young people? Because he mentioned something and said that we also need skills, not just that you get money, you go start, you get survival, but he's saying you also need the skills. You need a lot of things just than passion, more than passion. So do you think there are many other things that they do not tell young people about starting a business before they start them?
Yes, there is a lot. Now, apart from being a national coordinator, I'm also into business, but on an informal sector level.
Informal.
Now, that's where most of us, the youths, fall.
Good.
Apart from the way Gilbert said, now Gilbert is looking at the formal sector. Now, most youths, once we are out of campus, we find very few formal sectors that want to employ us. You understand? They set the qualifications too high, so we have to go low. And which low? I mean the informal sector is the first one that is able to accommodate us at that moment. You understand? So, and in that process, there is a lot that they don't tell you. There is a lot of guidance they don't give to us as we are launching into these different businesses. If you're lucky enough and you get somebody to help you, guide you, then blessed be you. But if you're not, and now let's say the hustlers, the YDB, that means you're going to go low and start it for yourself. And that's where most youths are in the informal sector. But then their businesses die at the premature stage. You understand? Because they don't have guidance, or they were told a few things when starting a business. Now, me, let's say I don't have a business of my own. I'm employed. Somebody is employing me. Of course, I work for somebody. But then now, I've been looking at this from that perspective of being employed. I've seen people who have come up to run their businesses and the troubles they go through. And also from here, the knowledge you learn. You understand? Sometimes you go into an area and you see people are selling the same thing. You're like, how do these people here survive? Like competition. You're selling the same thing as you enter a place and you find this one sells plates, and you wonder how are they surviving. Now those are some of the things they don't tell us. Now you launch into a business, you begin it. Let's say you establish your small business. Now most youths today, we are impatient. They never tell you be patient with a business. They don't tell you that. They tell you, begin this business, this business works. If you set up, you have this capital, you put it in, it's going to work. They don't tell you that it's not going to begin immediately. You're going to have to be patient. You're going to learn the way of speech. You're going to learn the way you're going to handle people. You're going to have to learn the way you balance this and that. They don't tell us that. They don't tell you there are going to be hardships. Like you're going to be having losses here and there, but you have to pull up. You understand? First, when you're going into the business, all you think about is profits, so left, right, center. You think when I begin the business, the customers are going to come right away. They don't tell you that even this informal business of yours needs to pay taxes. You don't think about it until the tax people come asking for their taxes, and you don't have anything, or you're forced to close at that moment. And so they don't tell you all of that, and then when you go there, you face the harsh reality, and then just like you said in the beginning, the business dies before even its birthday. So those are some of the issues I think they don't tell us.
That's an interesting perspective. I want to get back to you, Gilbert, that there are so many things that have been mentioned about, especially about the realities. So do you actually think that many young people are aware of these realities before they start businesses?
Now that's a very interesting point that I feel I should share my experience. First of all, like I said, I am a family man, and I want to share this, that when I now entered business and now I was off employment, so it meant I am going to be surviving because back home I have a family to look at. Now, these are some of the challenges that our entrepreneurs are facing today. That at the table here, when you're starting, you should at least take 1 to 3 years of your inception, not looking at the profit margins that the company may make. But at the back of your mind, you know that you have to pay rent. If I told you, Father, I didn't have land in Kampala, like some of us who are doing it the hard way, and you realize that the meals, the bills are on you, but the company is generating money. The money being generated is not an equivalent that can even, sponsor you or sponsor your bills. Now, when most of the entrepreneurs come to that field, they were not told of that, like she said, and these are things that you can only face when you are into this entrepreneurship. I found myself at one time at crossroads that the people who had, funded us wanted to look at our books of accounts. And they could see that, at least for me, I was lucky that the first month we launched, our company was generating good income. We were, because in logistics, when you have trucks, if you don't have, let's say, a loan you're paying, the money that the people are giving you, like you find a month you're making 10 million and this is income, the flow is coming. But then you are not the company, because you're working on your company, or you're working in the company, you're not working anywhere, because this company has to, start up well, and you have to give it time. You have to set some money aside of the income of the company. And now when you count at the end of the year, you'll find that the big portion of the money being generated as revenue of the company, most of the money, or the big portion, is now heading to clear your bills. If at all you have other colleagues that you are working with on the startup, also need to be paid. Now this is where some of the I don't know if I can look in a camera because I need to emphasize this, that when you go to the United States, in the Silicon Valley, you'll find that some of the startups that are starting there, they are having some good, funding that they can run for more than 3 to 5 years without even spending on their revenue. But when you come to Uganda, the story is different, because the only money you had from home, or maybe from your colleagues, and you gathered it together to start a business, is the same money that you're going to be You're going to be taking on. So that's the difference. And that's why you see there is a lot of startups in the UK, in the United States, in China, that are now taking the marketplace, because for them their policies or their governments are able to provide a certain a fund that can allow that startup to run even without having to spend on the money that this company is doing. For instance, if you're in production, it can take you 3 years for you to be able to produce or to work on a product that is going to competitively perform on the market. So that meant that in those 3 years, or in the years that the company, the product you're working on, is not yet able to give you good margins, but you have to survive because you're paying rent, you're paying the workers, you're paying everything. So now back to us, I think this is some of the hidden realities.
Are you trying to advocate for handouts from governments?
I would beg to disagree with the word that you've used.
No, when
that
you compare the Silicon Valley,
the Silicon Valley are not getting handouts from government. Handouts are money that are given behind door, but funding that is set, let's say it has been set for entrepreneurs through the Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation, the ministry that is being.
In this case, in Uganda, we have PDM. Isn't that Emyoga, PDM? Aren't those handouts from the government?
Of course, I have my reservations, but you're taking me very fast because I needed to first make the other point that yes, much as we, because the PDM money, if it was done in good faith, because I don't believe it's handout. The handouts are money being paid on the back end. But if you look at the modus operandi of the PDM today, it's actually being done openly. That you cannot get that money if you don't have a national ID. You cannot get that money if you've not gone through the right procedures of acquiring that money. And this money is targeting a certain sector, which is the informal sector. The women that are selling, stores, tomato stores, these people operating chapati stores, people's capital that is not exceeding 1 million. Yes. So people like us who are into capital interests, industries like logistics, where one truck will cost you not less than 150 million. We do not need something like handouts. All we need is a streamlined funding, which I have seen one of the startups in Uganda, the Kira Motors Corporation, has received a lot of funding. I think the biggest shareholders of KMC could be Uganda government, right?
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm thinking that as Uganda, we have what we call the UDB, the Uganda Development Bank. Those are some of the avenues that government can boost more. And then we have youth startups having to access the funding that is actually provided. But then the other thing which I have found out is that some of the money that is given or that has been allocated to UDB, at times the issue could be the accessibility.
Like their tax, I'm just establishing, I'm flourishing, and you're taxing me at that stage that I'm flourishing. I haven't even harvested. So meaning, whatever is coming out of me, I'm giving it to you before even I do anything with it. So meaning, at the end of the day, I'm not going to bloom. I'm going to stay at that stage, and I reach a point when you've overtaxed me, I die out. Yes, that's something.
Okay, interesting. So I want to get back to you, Gilbert. She has really brought up interesting things that are not really interesting, but things which are really happening in the practically in the sector, in the field. Standardization, taxation, regulations. So, as from your own experience, at what point did you, besides the internal factors that you mentioned about before starting, you have to be having this, you have to be ready. At what point in your business did the external factors, like she mentioned about taxes, regulations, the system, begin to affect your business decisions?
Well, this is now broad. I just thank God that I should have the tenacity to express myself over that. One, maybe for the viewer to bring you to understand this is that we have what we call the policy environment. And I could discuss that or define that as the playing field for everybody. Now in this aspect could be the entrepreneurs, the big dogs like already established conglomerates and big businesses. And now, and these, playing fields could ranging from, you've just listed the regulations, taxes, and all the rules that govern the business. In 2023, we were faced with a big challenge in our supply chain. We had a company that had hired us to deliver their goods. It was an FMCG company based from China and Kenya. It was in Nigeria. It was in, I think, also in Tanzania. For the record, I don't want to mention its name. But we were going to be supplying these goods all over the city and the other neighboring towns. So we found that for a truck to leave Kampala, where the main warehouse was, it was going through, let me just give an example from here to Entebbe. From Kampala, the warehouse was located in Nakawa. So from Nakawa, if you're going to be distributing or making deliveries along the way, you are going to go along a series of administrative units. In Kampala here, they are called divisions. If you go to the districts, they are called, municipalities or town councils. So what we are facing is that a truck, there's this thing that I wrote about. I wrote an article called The Unpopular Mobile Vending Tax. Uganda's unpopular mobile vending tax. It was money collected from every single truck that delivers goods on the retail shops along. So for our case, you would find that a truck is leaving Nakawa, proceeding to Entebbe, but along the way, it has deliveries along. So you find you going through Nakawa division, you go through the city suburb, the city center, that's CBD, downtown. You go to Kafumbe Mukasa, that's another administrative unit. You go to Chibuye, that's under Machide Sabagabo, something like that. Then when you reach Seguku, or I think this is called, when you're close towards Entebbe Road. Yes, Kajansi, under Wakiso. Then when you reach Entebbe, there is Entebbe municipality. So I've mentioned around 4-5 administrative units, local administrative units. So in every single one of them, a truck is actually mandated to pay 40,000 shillings for the mobile vending. So we are computing that in 1 month, a truck that is taking routes in those deliveries, it's actually going to pay a sum of over 200 and plus, 200 and around 40,000 in just mobile vending. These are not known taxes. You just meeting when you're delivering. A guy is coming. I'm an agent. I'm collecting the mobile vending taxes. So you need to pay a sticker. But even when they're giving you a sticker, they don't give you a receipt, because now for us, when you're coming back and you're filing, you have to show that we are able to pay this. And when you ask them, they tell you, boss, we can only give you a sticker. If you don't want, we are clamping you. So I was like, boss.
Sorry to interrupt. Is that paid on a daily basis, like every day when you're operating?
No, it was paid monthly. Yes. But then you find that the truck will make deliveries in around the city. So it's going around 8 or 10 subdivisions. So you find in every division you're going through, the truck is paying a lot of money. Now that is off the fuel, that's off the expenses that we didn't anticipate. So I came up and was like, you guys, we are working for nothing. And I worked on that article, shared it with Daily Monitor. It was not, given space. I had a conference in Entebbe. I think it was organized by Uganda Development Bank, UDB, and then adopted. I met some of the big guys who are also in the supply chain, like the manufacturers of some crisps. Every person who was into Saudi were also, facing the same challenge. So we said, okay, I at least have a clause. I can have an access to the mayor of Entebbe municipality. So we made our appointment with him. We shared with him our grievances. I shared with him the article. I was like, okay. So for now, or for the time being, that kind of tax was suspended. And I want to thank government that was able to hear us. Even up to date, there are, of course, some other errant administrative units where some of those taxes are still being taxed. But in other areas now, like around town, around Kampala, they are no longer being taxed. But back to the point, because it was a bit lengthy. So back to the point, there's quite a lot of things. Government has a lot of regulations. But I want to ask, how will government set regulations without involving the stakeholders? For instance, I think less than 10 years back, we had the rising of safe border, Uber and all that. Now, right now, there is an ongoing move where all the borders are chased away from the city. Now, the person operating safe border or Uber, for them they are limitless on where they can take their customers. So you'll find Gilbert who wants to rush to downtown, maybe to pick an invoice or to drop an invoice to a customer. I jump on on an Uber, and this Uber have already piloted that I'm going to CBD, but they're saying there is no border, or there is no cyclist who is going to be allowed to enter the city. So you see now they're conflicting that when they are setting their policies, first of all, they have not involved the people who are into the policy and how that policy is going to be affecting the stakeholders. So for me, I would think that when government is coming up with some of these policies that influence the way we are doing business or the field of our operation, they should at least have time and interact with us, because I would believe a sound policy should be backed by research. Which research has collected data, analyzed the data, and how the data is going to affect before the policy is introduced and adopted. So I don't know if I can go further. Yes.
Oh, thank you for that. When we were talking, I was actually trying to think about this entire thing, that we actually have regulations and taxes which are formal and those which are informal, which are not actually known. I was surprised by the aspect of the mobile vending tax that you go here. I actually have some business, and I was wondering why we do not get suppliers to come to shops, bring their cars to supply things. So now I'm realizing it's actually no goes on for someone to maybe get a truck, you put the different products, then you start going to different shops. Because if you consider in the aspect of mobile vending, if then it is still there, then there is no profit on that, because everywhere you go, if you go, for example, in Entebbe, Wakiso, you are going to be taxed for only that, yet you have to file the monthly, your RSP and everything. And that same thing was actually making me question that why would a business that is actually in, for example, let me say it is in Chileka, it has to go to Namgongo division, pay for that. Actually, it has to pay national level. It has to pay your RSB, it has to pay your RA. So why wouldn't they really make it streamlined so that you pay once, you pay everything? Maybe you pay your RA and it caters for the rest of the things. But now you need also trading license in the area you are. But when you want to move or have a branch in maybe in Barara, you still pay. Now, if you have this...
Now to that, I just want to give you some information. Right now, I'm running a contract, like I aired first, that we are transporters of Lato milk here, because it's an open contract. Come, and then that's why I'm disclosing this, because I'm not having to disclose something. So during our deliveries in the upcountry, now in the upcountry, it's actually worse. Because a policy that has been halted in Kampala, when you go in the upcountry, it's not. But now for our client, Lato, it's actually the one that clears the mobile vending tax. So when you leave Kampala, you're heading to Jinja. In Jinja, there's Jinja district, there's Jinja, the city. So in the city, there are different divisions. So if Jinja has about 4 divisions, you will have to pay all that money. Now, when you go out where the division or the city is stopping, you go to the district. You go to pay. You're also going to pay. When you go out from Jinja, you're going to Iganga. There's the same. There's a municipality. There's a district. You're heading to Mbale. You reach in Mbale city. There are divisions. So it's real. But then for us, because now our clients meets that, but I believe that's money that is being paid, and that money accounts on a certain what? Yeah.
Allow me move to back to Rachael. That you've actually mentioned about for small businesses, and you've had challenges from Gilbert. Do you think that the process of starting a business is straightforward? Number 2, do you think that the compliance requirements are actually realistic to small businesses?
The issue of starting a business, small business, is it straight? I really don't think so. I don't think that it is straight. No. because there's a lot required to start a business, and most of those requirements with the youths don't meet them. You understand? There's a lot that is required. Maybe, let's say now you want to establish a business, they will require you to have a license of operation in that place. And at some point, just like I told you, maybe you don't even have okay, what you have is the capital and the rent that you're paying for that place. So meaning you don't yet have the money to pay for that license. So meaning you're just going to say, let me start. On the way, if God touches you, you will pay the license. But if not, you keep escaping. Like when they come, of course, just like you sit back there, if in your villages, you take time to look. When they know that the people collecting the revenue are coming, you close your shop, you run away, you close, and then you wait when the whole waivers come down, then you come and operate again. So the requirements needed to meet, they're like most youths, we don't have them.
Okay.
Yes.
So why do you think many businesses actually remain informal instead of growing? Because when you're informal, it is always hard for you to grow, to expand.
I think many are not growing because maybe like the taxes, just like I'm going to go to taxes. Same issue. Like why are they not growing? We have that fear of most government. Okay, if you look, I feel that's now my opinion. I feel like the government favors more of the big businesses. Fine, the big businesses have their own issues, but then I think those are the most favored one up there, like more than the small one. I feel like we the below people are more taxed than the high ones. Now remember, you're here struggling, you're just beginning a business, and then they come, they tax you. The other one who's going to begin a big one is going to be given a tax exemption. You understand? So they're not going to pay tax for a certain period of years. Me who is here down below, they're going to tax me. So in the process of taxing me, already maybe even the bank, I borrowed money from the bank. You understand? And they need their money back in a certain period of time. And within that period of time, you have to be paying a certain amount. Meaning I'm getting that amount from the very business that I have begun. And from that very business, I'm paying other bills. Like everything as a youth, it mainly depends on that small business you've established. Like your whole world is there. Your family is there. Your medical bills there. Your food there. The license there. Like everything is on that small business. So when do you expect that business to grow? It will, of course, it's going to be always at that level. If you don't put in more effort and maybe you don't get more clients or connections to establish to make that business bigger. You understand? There's also that bit of connection, like who do you know somewhere, somehow, to come help you to make this. Like now, I'll give an example of saying like me. I'm operating somewhere, I'm selling certain things. Now I want to develop and go to China, like to begin exporting, to bring in my goods. Now before I go to China, one thing I've realized, before you go to China, get to know someone from URA. But the clearance, who clears before you go to China to get those goods, because if you're to get them there and now you're bringing them here, you're bringing something, you're buying a commodity, maybe you bought the commodities and they cost 12 million. You're bringing them at the tax clearance, like 7 million, 20 million, that is not even in the things that you bought, or if not even close to the amount you spent while buying those things. So meaning before you go there, you have to know someone, technical know who up there, who is from there, so that when your things reach at that place, you explain to that person, you see this and this and this and this. What do you think? Like I need help from there for my things to be cleared real quick.
Are you actually saying that all the successful business or entrepreneurs actually have a contact from URA? Can't a system work on its own without me knowing someone?
On my opinion, my opinion, not the justice media opinion,
Yes.
but Rachel's opinion. Many will deny, but I believe those people do have a connection somewhere, somehow.
Is it out of experience? Have you experienced that before? Or you have a friend?
I am among these business people. Yes. So I
could give maybe a little information about the clearance. Like you said, you asked if there isn't any single coordination on the URI portal. Yes, they are there, but when you're clearing goods, you need an agent, clearing agent. So what she's saying is actually true, that these clearing agents have, portals of access onto the system. That if you talk to them, I have not experienced that because I'm not in importation, but at least I have friends that I've shared with who have, every time we go for coffee, tell us, I had my container, I was supposed to be clearing this, they slapped this kind of, so not until I first so and so. So I can't speak but at least we've had them. That the system is there, but because our tax system has provided for tax clearing agents, that itself has actually created or paved the way for manipulation during the clearance. Yeah, so it's actually.
Okay, speaking about manipulation, I've watched a video on, I think, TikTok, where the URA page, I think it's URA TV, where a URA lady was actually explaining that they have impounded 9 vehicles. That the people who are importing them, there's a way they change, is it the serial number, something like that, the numbers. So when URA finds out, says, actually to try to run away from taxes, because if the number is different, meaning you will pay different tax. So they impounded them and they said, we are giving you 1 month. If you don't come, we are going to put them on, how do they call it? Auctioning. So considering the aspect of how the system is doing things, do you think as an entrepreneur, auctioning items would be a great idea vis-a-vis what the entrepreneur wants?
I think from my perspective, I don't support it because one, if you quote me wrong does not correct wrong. The good thing would be that there should be some penalties, which penalties should not actually be taking the entire consignment. Because if I have borrowed money from either a bank and then you confiscate my things, but before that, what has brought us to that? You see, corruption is not paying a bribe only. The word corruption is where a system is no longer functioning in the way it should supposed to be functioning. That's how I could define that. So if a clearing agent has already spoken to someone that if you paid this, I would actually have your goods cleared, and you pay less than you're supposed to be paying, that has already created a window that even the traders are improvising ways on how they can, bypass the taxman. But I would believe that if our ways were all straight, there should not be these hurdles. We should actually be transacting very well. Personally, I am one person who likes clearing, and if you visited us, you'll find that from year one, we've been filing. We've been filing every single time because I believe that it is upon me as a good citizen to be tax compliant, because as a believer, even the Bible speaks about that. So I'm speaking from a perspective of a Christian.
You give Caesar what belongs to Caesar.
Absolutely.
All right, let's look at this in a separate way. We have talked about challenges by the individuals themselves and challenges by the systems, by the external environment, by the policies, the taxes, standardization, etc. But now we want to look at both of them differently. Where do entrepreneurs fail themselves? I'm going to look at you. Let me begin with Rachel. Let's start with where do the system fail entrepreneurs? And then you will come in and tell us where entrepreneurs fail themselves. I'll start with you, Rachel. Like, where do entrepreneurs Okay, sorry. Where does the system fail the entrepreneurs?
I think the system fails in regulating whatever policies they put in place. Like if you're to look at Uganda, we have many good policies on paper, but when they come to putting them in place or making them work, that's where most things fail. But then the policies are very good and they are supportive. But then when it comes to putting them in place, that's why now they kind of fail. So I think where the system fails the entrepreneurs, I think they're like when give the entrepreneurs, I just like he said, some entrepreneurs need funding for them to begin. These funds like encourage us. If you know that I'm going to get a fund somewhere, so you struggle hard to make everything go through the straight process so that you present whatever your idea is and it is funded. Now most things that we fail at, we think we the ones the youths, if you don't have money you're not going to be funded. You understand? Because the system is showing us that the system is showing us that like I put it in Uganda, supporting abalina yongerako koyo alina yayongerezebwako. Because now take the scenario of the guy, you remember that some guy who made an airplane, like he was trying to innovate. Now sometimes I sit down and be like, what if the government came and maybe took up this talent? I don't know if they recruited that talent, but I still don't think they recruited it. I remember he had established it, then news later came that over what had happened, a fire came up and they burnt what he had innovated. So I am like, what if the government looked at that idea? We have many people who come up present their ideas. What if government recruits those people? You add to what they have. You understand? You may not fund us, but you can put them in education. Maybe like you add on the ideas they have. So I think also the system is failing us at funding. The youths need funding because they have a lot of ideas, but just they lack the push to put
Okay,
those
so
ideas in place.
what do you think between the two, it's a bigger problem today, between the entrepreneurs failing themselves and the system failing them? Which is the bigger problem today?
I think the bigger problem is the system failing us.
Okay, let's move on to Gilbert. You will as well answer how the entrepreneurs fail themselves, and what do you think is the bigger problem? Is it the entrepreneurs themselves or the system?
Thank you so much. I believe Uganda being the second nation with the youngest people. Uganda is named after Niger. A nation with the youngest population in the world, in the whole world. We are presented with one of the golden opportunities. And we've seen that because Uganda also has been ranked as one of the best entrepreneurs in the world over. And that's no doubt because of our youngest population. So with that, Uganda has got a lot of business minds. The other time I was seeing, I think in the newspaper, could be Daily Monitor or New Vision, that the Ugandan women entrepreneurs were number 2 after South Africa or something. Some kind of you media people should be. I just flashed my eyes over that. Was on the front of the newspaper, one of the media houses. So the issue here is not with entrepreneurs. What I spoke about were a bit technical, that needs an environment, that needs a field that can nurture. When we speak about incubation, an incubation is that conducive environment that is put in place to provide a good progress or a better progress for what is actually in. For instance, when you know a hen that is laying eggs, you cannot see what is taking place in an egg, not until after 21 days. And that process is called incubation. Every single time the hen comes and sits to warm those eggs, you will see the egg, but you will hardly see what is taking place. So in Uganda, we just need to have an incubation process or an incubation environment that can help nurture our entrepreneurial minds the Mark Zuckerbergs, you know, of the United States. We have got them here. We have got them here. I personally have actually attended some of the boat camps, and I have interacted with a lot of entrepreneurs in Uganda. In 2022, I think I used to have some sharing time at the Innovation Village in Ntinda. And I could speak to people, and I saw how people were doing a lot of things. You allow me share this. Right now, myself and another team of mine, or a group of other young men like I, are building a system called the Autodoc. I will sue you if you went ahead and used my name, because it's already reserved. I would sue you. So we are building that system. The system is already set. Everything is already set. We are just left. We have actually applied to the Uganda Communication Commission for a certificate called, I think I'm forgetting the name, but it's more to do with allowing to use the national or the NINI numbers or the registration details of the customers, because we shall need on approvals from our services. I don't want to speak details of the innovation, but we shall need some details from the customers' national IDs. So we need a certificate allowing us to use that data. But this is a process that can take you 2 years. So we started, but because of those, bureaucracies are delaying us, where we're supposed to have launched a year back, but we cannot launch. So I believe the system is actually, to a larger extent, to be blamed. Because if you gave birth to a child who you know they're not upright, you don't have to call them them. In fact, you should provide for a conducive environment where they should also come up. So we cannot say that government, I'm not saying government. Here I'm talking about, when I speak about the system, when we speak about the system, we are actually entailing the private sector, the people in government, the people in civil society, of course, people in financial institutions like banks and other microfinance credit corporations to come up on board, train this population, and shape them for better scalability. If I took you to China, China has a vision that by 2030, they want to have 50% of the vehicles all being electric. You're right? So now, whatever is taking place right now, people are saying China is suffering because it depends on the oil from the Strait of Hormuz. Yes, it is. But I want to tell you that the other nation has already moved ahead. So if you look at thank you. So if you look at the vision of China, is actually looking at the adoption of EVs, because they want to go away from the oil-based engines to electric vehicles. So the startups that we see, like BYD, that started a few years back, is actually now, it has actually taken over Tesla. I think last year it sold over 1.8 or 9 units of vehicles, where Tesla sold, I think 1.7. That was below BYD. And we're looking at a lot of them. We've seen electric bikes here in Uganda. And I'm glad that Uganda has also put incentives on people who are importing. So it means any startup that will come in that arena is actually going to enjoy, because I see a 10-year tax exemption, income tax exemption on startups or on companies that are going to invest in EVs. We see there's going to be duty-free, among many things, subsidies on the people that are there. So it is government, or it is the system that can provide us a good environment where our entrepreneurs can thrive in a system that is supportive.
All right. So as we nearing the end of this particular discussion, as the African Justice Media, we envision to see that we actually have a policy framework or influence policies that are actually going to favor all individuals to have economic freedom. So we want to pick from your minds and from you as a business person. We want to hear your recommendations so that we can be able to have a policy recommendation to the government or the policymakers. So we want to hear 2 or 3 policy recommendations from you. And then as well, Rachel, what are some of the policy recommendations you give? We've had most of the challenges, the problem, but now we want to look at the aspect of solutions. Should I start with you or you ready? And who is ready, you can start. Then after that, you give your concluding remarks. Yeah.
I think, okay, some of the things that they can be put in place, I think, yeah. First of all, the bureaucracy part, like let the registration of businesses, instead of taking months, can't it take hours? Can your business be registered in an hour? Can they verify it and register you? So that whole process, it should be simplified to hours, not months, not years. That whole process. And I think also revenue for early businesses, like let the early business that are starting, let them grow before you extract the.
For how long before they are taxed?
Before they are taxed, I think a period of 3 years is fair for me to be operating, to have found out somewhere to be stabilized before you tax me. So let me grow before you tax me. I think those are some of the things I think.
All right, let's move to Gilbert.
For me, I think I would advise us, or I would recommend that as a nation we should digitize, like she said, we should digitize all the the avenues of how people can access services, especially the regulations to do with registrations and all that. But secondly, I would believe that we should limit more of popularizing most of the things and allow the private sector take shape. Because in Uganda here, I think the biggest challenge you have is that everything has been popularized, everything has been politicized. Where even when you're starting a business, and you have to have an aspect of the political mind. And yes, I believe that much of economics is politics, and much of politics is economics. But we can these 2 aspects can actually operate fairly. Where when it's an election time, let's go out and because I want to give you an example of nations like China, nations like the United Kingdom, the United States. You will see there will be time for everything. If we are in the electioneering periods, we will focus on that, and when we are done, we get back to work. Not where when we are in the elections, people in parliament feel because a policy is being brought forward that can easily support the scalability of our businesses, and because it has not come from the side they support, they will have to shoot it down because it has not come from the side they support. So I believe there should be a lot of limitations that, yes, much as we can allow the free speeches and all that, but let's come, we are one family. And if entrepreneurs thrive, government will have a lot of tax collections, government will have to deliver to the social services. But if we are having entrepreneurs who we are looking at the tax base that are going to be supporting or that are going to be generating money or revenue for government being suffocated or being shocked and being suffocated, we will not have that. I don't know if you've seen about the new tax amendment bill that is looking at taxing 40% on salary earners. We're looking at 40%. This is almost 50%. How? Oh my God! I mean, that is too much. We used to hear those taxes in nations like Russia, North Korea, where we have people who everything you work for government first than working for yourself. I believe government's role is only to provide security, a conducive environment, but not take all that we are working for, because it meant we are working for government, we're not working for ourselves.
Okay, so let me get to Rachel as you give us the concluding or parting shot.
I think my parting shot would be like we the youth in Uganda, I think the youths in Uganda now, like we don't need, or they don't need more government programs that are coming up. Instead, they need like fewer barriers to be put in place, and the freedom to allow them flourish and build than these government programs that they are offering to them. But instead, they should give them the space to build themselves and also to reduce on the barriers that are limiting them from taking up different opportunities and establishing themselves.
Okay. Your parting shot, Gilbert?
Yeah, thank you so much. I think my parting shot is that Uganda is a very beautiful country. There is no nation I've been to like Uganda. You can go south, north, east, you will come back. Uganda is the best. I always have a friend from the United States who tells me the Ugandan pineapple is the best pineapple ever. Uganda is a beautiful country. We can actually attract and even generate, or even put this nation on the world map because we have the best weather, we have the best everything. But I think I could not leave this opportunity without addressing this, that much as our leaders are pushing for the East African community, East African integration, and the having Africa a one common market, I would believe that as much as we are pushing those international avenues, because those international avenues are only looking at people who have made it, like businesses that have already established. But I would really using advocate, I would think or even suggest that our leaders should focus at what he has said, limiting or removing away the barriers that I've talked about, not being free to trade from Kampala. If you're having to go to Mukono, you have to pay a certain fee to access that market. Is that free market? Yeah, so much as we are pushing for the international markets, like having one common market, one East African common market, it's a good thing, but how beneficial is it to the local entrepreneurs? Let's first address these issues. After addressing these issues, and these companies have established, have scaled up, they are now going to go and demand for accessing markets in Kenya or in Tanzania or in Rwanda or in everything. Thank you so much for.
All right, thank you very much, lady and gentleman here, for joining us for this particular Afro Liberty Talks discussion. And now I hope you enjoyed the discussion, our viewers, especially the young people who are starting up businesses. We want to hear your thoughts in the comment section. Is there any challenge that you have? What is your biggest challenge as a young person who is trying to actually build something? Now, as we close this discussion, we know that entrepreneurship is always presented as a solution, but of course solutions require environments that work, as our speaker suggested. So the real question is not just whether young people are ready to build, but whether the systems are ready to support them. I remain George Justice Kanyihamba, the host, and this is Afro Liberty Talks. See you in the next episode.